Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Defense Secretary Mark Esper has acknowledged he did not see specific evidence that Iranian General Qasem Soleimani was planning attacks against U.S. embassies at the time U.S. forces assassinated him in a drone strike at the Baghdad International Airport a week ago Friday. This is despite Trump's claims Soleimani was planning to attack embassies.
I can reveal that I believe it would have been 4 embassies, but Baghdad certainly would have been the lead. But I think it would have been 4 embassies, could have been military bases, could have been a lot of other things, too. But it was imminent. And then all of a sudden, he was gone.
That was President Trump speaking on Fox on Friday. But this is Secretary of Defense Esper speaking with CBS Face the Nation host Margaret Brennan Sunday.
He didn't cite a specific piece of evidence. What he said is he believed.
Are you saying there wasn't one?
I didn't see one with regard to 4 embassies. What I'm saying is I share the president's view that probably my expectation was they were going to go after our embassies.
NBC is reporting President Donald Trump authorized the killing of Qasem Soleimani 7 months ago. Meanwhile, the Washington Post has revealed U.S. forces unsuccessfully attempted to assassinate a top Iranian commander in Yemen on the same day that the U.S. killed Soleimani in that drone strike in Baghdad, suggesting Soleimani's death was part of a large U.S. campaign to target Iranian commanders. Abdulreza Shalai, the commander of the Yemen division of Iran's elite Quds Force, survived the assassination attempt that killed at least a member of the Quds Force. This all comes as Wall Street Journal reports Trump reportedly told associates after Soleimani's killing that he'd been facing pressure to deal with Soleimani from Republican senators that he viewed as important supporters in his upcoming impeachment trial in the Senate. Iranian protesters have taken to the streets for a 3rd day after the Iranian military acknowledged it accidentally shot down a Ukrainian airliner last week, killing all 176 people on board. Iran initially denied downing the plane, but then Iran's Revolutionary Guard took responsibility for what authorities described as a disastrous mistake. The plane headed to Kiev, Ukraine, was down just after Iranian forces fired 22 rockets at military bases in Iraq, housing U.S. troops in retaliation for the U.S. assassination of the Iranian commander, General Qasem Soleimani. There are reports Iranian forces have fired live ammunition and tear gas to disperse the protesters. Britain's ambassador to Tehran, Rob Macaire, was briefly detained in Iran, with officials claiming he participated in protests over the downed jet. Ambassador Macaire denies being at the protests. He said he was attending a vigil. The victims of the plane crash included 82 Iranians and 57 Canadians. Among those killed was indigenous Iranian PhD student Ghanimat Azdari. In impeachment news, the House of Representatives is expected to vote this week to name their impeachment managers and send the articles of impeachment to the Senate. 3 Republican senators have said they want the Senate to call former National Security Advisor John Bolton as a witness during the Senate impeachment trial. Utah Republican Senator Mitt Romney, Alaska Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski, and Maine Republican Senator Susan Collins. 51 senators can vote to subpoena witnesses in an impeachment trial, meaning that if one more Republican senator joins the 47 Democrats, the group could force Senate Majority Leader McConnell to subpoena Bolton, who has said he would testify if subpoenaed. In election news, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders has been endorsed by one of New Hampshire's largest and most influential labor unions, SEIU Local 1984. Meanwhile, author and spiritual leader Marianne Williamson has ended her presidential campaign and has vowed to support the Democratic nominee. 6 candidates will take the stage Tuesday night for the 7th Democratic presidential debate in Des Moines, Iowa, the last one ahead of the Iowa caucuses. A group of 13 former bipartisan White House press secretaries, Foreign Service and military officials have written a CNN opinion piece demanding the Trump administration resume its press briefings. White House Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham has yet to hold a single briefing since becoming President Trump's chief spokesperson in July. In immigration news, BuzzFeed reports the Trump administration has been preparing to expand its travel ban, which already bars citizens of 7 mostly majority Muslim countries from entering the United States. The draft documents obtained by BuzzFeed don't have the name of the countries being considered, but there are reportedly 7 slots for countries presenting a, quote, risk of, quote, terrorist travel. This comes as Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott announced Friday his state will no longer accept refugees this year, becoming the first state to officially reject refugee resettlements under a new Trump administration rule issued in September. Meanwhile, in Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, state police have evicted at least 100 Mexican and Central American asylum seekers from a camp near the U.S. border, threatening to separate parents from their children if the asylum seekers don't move. The threatened separation of families recalls the Trump administration's policy of forcibly separating parents from their children during the zero-tolerance crackdown that began in 2018. And in more immigration news, at least 12 migrants have died after their boat sunk in the Mediterranean as the group attempted to reach Italy. In the Philippines, authorities are urging nearly 500,000 people near the capital, Manila, to evacuate their homes after the Taal volcano spewed ash into the air Sunday. Authorities are now warning about a possible explosive eruption or volcanic tsunami. The Taal volcano is one of the world's most dangerous volcanoes. Meanwhile, in Puerto Rico, a 5.9 magnitude earthquake rattled the island Saturday. There have been powerful tremors almost daily after a 6.4 magnitude earthquake struck Puerto Rico last week, knocking out power. About 96% of electricity customers in Puerto Rico have had their electrical service restored by Sunday. In France, the government is backing down on its effort to raise the retirement age as transportation workers and other unions continue a massive strike now entering its 6th week. On Saturday, the French government caved to some of the protesters' demands and said it would temporarily scrap the proposal to raise the full benefits retirement age, the most controversial part of French President Emmanuel Macron's proposed pension overhaul. Despite the concessions, some unionized workers remain on strike today across France. In Taiwan, voters re-elected President Tsai Ing-wen in a rebuke to Beijing. President Tsai has promised to preserve Taiwan's sovereignty, even as China has tried to exert more political power over Taiwan. Saturday's election in Taiwan comes amidst months of protests in Hong Kong, where demonstrators are calling for increasing political independence from mainland China. In Malta, lawyer Robert Abela is slated to be sworn in as Malta's next prime minister today after the former prime minister, Joseph Muscat, was forced to resign over the murder of investigative journalist Daphne Caruana Galizia. Malta's richest man, the gambling tycoon Jorgen Fenech, has been charged with complicity in the journalist's murder and has been arrested in a separate money laundering case. Fenech is also linked to Muscat's former chief of staff. 2 Iraqi journalists have been assassinated in the southern city of Basra, sparking fear among journalists across Iraq. Local television correspondent Ahmad Abdel-Samad and his cameraman Safak Ali were killed in a drive-by shooting. Meanwhile, in Mexico, radio presenter Fidel Avila Gomez was found dead in the state of Michoacan last week, marking the first murder of a journalist in Mexico this year. The Committee to Protect Journalists says Mexico is one of the world's most dangerous countries for journalists, with more journalists murdered there last year than in any country except Syria. An Illinois judge has ordered the Chicago Police Department to turn over documents detailing nearly 5 decades of misconduct allegations against police officers. Judge Allison Conlon ordered the police department to turn over the files after ruling the department had willfully and intentionally failed to comply with the Illinois Freedom of Information Act. The documents will be published on the website of the Invisible Institute, which covers police misconduct and abuse in Chicago. The game show Jeopardy has sparked outrage.
Church 200. Built in the 300s A.D., the Church of the Nativity. Katie.
What is Palestine?
No. Jack?
What is Israel?
That's it. And that takes you to 2,200. You're still in 3rd place, however, which of course means that you get to go first in Double Jeopardy.
In fact, the Church of the Nativity is located in the Palestinian territory of the West Bank, which is occupied by Israel in violation of international law. Palestinian and human rights activists have called on Jeopardy to apologize. In New York City, at least 100 women protested against accused sexual predator Harvey Weinstein outside the Manhattan courthouse, where the disgraced Hollywood mogul is standing trial for rape.
Patriarchy is our judge. That imprisons us at birth. And our punishment. All not where I was or how I dressed. And the rapist was you.
This anti-rape anthem was developed by the Chilean feminist collective Las Tesis and has since gone viral. The women also took aim at President Trump, who's been accused of rape, sexual assault, and sexual harassment by at least 25 women. This is one of the protesters, Zakia Ansari.
It's such a representation of the assault on women's bodies, from assault on reproductive rights to black trans women being attacked all over this world and all over this country, to old white men trying to take control of our bodies, right? And I'm not void of that. I have 7 daughters, and unfortunately, one of my daughters had one of those experiences of being assaulted herself. So this is personal to me. But the reality is that we all know someone. There's some story, whether it's Me Too or something else, of oppression of women.
And in South Africa, the LGBTQ community is mourning the death of transgender activist Naru Mfele, who was found murdered on Sunday. In 2017, she won a landmark discrimination case against her high school that accused the principal of encouraging other students to harass and humiliate her over her gender identity. Friends and fellow advocates describe her as a selfless, determined, outspoken advocate for transgender rights. South African police have taken her boyfriend in for questioning. Some believe her murder may have been a hate crime. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.